Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain also.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, well, looking forward, looking ahead for this weekend. It's going to be an important weekend in the history of the country, given the build-up to the forthcoming Anambra governorship elections. But security remains a major concern.
It will always, I don't even know yet how we're going to convince people to come out. Even though, I mean, in that conversation we had with the Senate minority leader, saying that he's been going all over the place in the state to campaign, to tell people to come out and vote, that it's going to be safe. And he's even daring to say, look, this is likely going to be the highest turnout we're going to have. I'm looking forward to that. So, but in terms of security, I mean, it's not a threat peculiar to Anambra, as we all know. It's something that is all over the place. It was here yesterday that we broke the news that there was a kidnapping University of Abuja yesterday, which information ASU has also confirmed and reported to everyone here. Told us of course that the institution is working towards rescuing the people involved and all of that. The only thing that comes to my own mind about this, Chamberlain, is there has been that build-up, so to speak. There have been pockets of insecurity issues around the city of Abuja. But what is troubling for me, that is Abuja. That is the capital city. Don't forget that the number of security consultants have been saying over and over again that, look, something that is happening in states around the FCT, it's like a proverb to the city, that this thing is going to happen. It's in the University of Abuja, unless you're telling me that University of Abuja is not sited in Abuja city. Otherwise, this is something that definitely calls for concern. What is who doing about it? Well, we can hear the police, we can hear all security agents saying one thing or the other about it, but what is being done about it, that's another thing altogether.
Yeah, I mean, if you...
pictures that you're seeing here now, it's definitely troubling.
Well, sometimes you just wonder what is going on within the security circle because if they say that they operated for about an hour and they reached out to the security agencies, they didn't show up within that space of time, only for them to arrive much later. And then the interview, they said, well, they got information, they mobilized. So the big thing is, look, time and again, you tend to see these things. What is the response? Do we do anything? Is it even, do we even consider it? Do we consider it worthy of note that we need to improve the response time for security agencies to get across to distressed citizens? Is it of any importance, of any consequence to security agencies? One, and then, look, just as we've been told several times, surrounding towns, states to Abuja, Niger, I don't know if anybody can forget that very quickly, when the governor has said, look, he had asked for reinforcement several times. There's a huge concern that certain people are taking certain quarters. We don't know what has been done about his complaints about that. Much as we've said, look, you cannot police the entire country, from a particular, a centralized scenario, which is Abuja. I don't know who's paying attention to that.
But this one that you even mentioned, it's happened right there in Abuja.
Yeah, it's still the same structure.
The headquarters of the police, the headquarters of the army, the headquarters of every security apparatus.
The structural thing.
I agree with you. Now, you talked about, our response time. Don't let me get started.
Because, look, a lot of these things, they keep trying to encourage citizens to, the police is your friend, you're supposed to report what you see.
How safe is your friend to protect you? How safe is the police to protect the people that they are constitutionally responsible to take care of? How well kitted are they? Have you gone to any police station in recent time?
These kind of actions will justify. Remember that lawyer who defended himself in whichever way he found possible in the same Abuja when he was attacked?
Yes.
But did anybody investigate? Have you heard any follow-up as to who were those who attacked him? It comes across as though these chaps have the impetus, the tacit support. Because if you keep quiet about some of this, they take it as though, okay, it looks as if it's all clear for us to go on. But if it comes to this, citizens will have to keep protecting themselves in whichever way they deem fit. And I'm not sure that that is what we want.
Nobody
but if it's our
wants that.
reality, what can we do about it? Makwe?
Well, indeed. I mean, we're living right here in the middle of it in Abuja. Even though I must differentiate, oftentimes when we speak of Abuja, there's a larger area called the Federal Capital Territory. The University of Abuja falls within the larger area of the Federal Capital Territory, which has about 6 different districts. So even though, yes, it's the University of Abuja, it's not right at the heart of the Federal Capital Territory. The Federal Capital Territory is pretty widespread. I mean, it's got some rural communities as well, which is one of the places where the University of Abuja is situated. However, when you look at the fact that, I mean, that's a perimeter fence that's been shown on your screen there. When you look at the fact that universities, we've seen how many attacks especially in the Kaduna axis, that a number of universities have witnessed in recent times, there would have been questions. And don't forget that, Niger State too also came under severe attack. I think it's quietened a bit now. But before now, we did see Niger under, some fire. Senators even getting very worried and saying, they are just in Niger here, about an hour's drive away from Abuja. The question is, what did we do about areas we thought could be vulnerable to immediate attacks? So, for instance, this university, which is on the fringes of Abuja itself, I mean, is of course within the Federal Capital Territory. It is named the University of Abuja, which we know could be a target, especially when you think of the fact that the perimeter fencing is not exactly a perimeter fencing; it's a front fence. The moment you're inside the school, there's nothing at the back. Did we put in place a contingency plan that should any such attempt come upon this sort of institution, what should happen? What can happen? Are we doing a review of other, institutions that could be vulnerable to this sort of attacks? Because if it was already happening in Kaduna, it was already happening in Niger, for a number of people, it was only a matter of time before it came into the Federal Capital Territory itself. So I think that we really need to ramp up security. When the IG, who has been speaking a lot lately on security, says that, it is stable, things are beginning to stabilize, and people are wondering where precisely are they stabilizing, sir? These are the kinds of things that begin to poke holes in his statement. And it's sad that it is happening right here within the Federal Capital Territory. But I want to believe that perhaps this will be the last time that bandits will try this sort of attack. I want to believe that, the security agencies will consider this big enough an embarrassment for them to buckle up and make sure that this sort of attack doesn't happen again. Because I can tell you, if it does happen again, God forbid, it will continue to, I don't want to say chip at, because yes, our feeling of security is already being chipped at. I think it's going to wash away feelings of confidence. Don't forget, I mean, anybody who sees the paper or hears the story that it happened right within the Federal Capital Territory. The question is, if Abuja is not safe, where else in the country will it be? Big questions, gentlemen.
It's not just chipping away, Malwe. I mean, you remember that's Niger State Governor that you referenced earlier. A number of times we have heard, I think it was a governor that also said, look, this is happening in Niger State, neighboring states to the capital city. Yeah. If it could come into the city, and now it's a reality in our faces. And if the universities are not safe, well, this one has happened again. Another proverb, I would say, to any university environment that we should be paying attention to.
These are the kind of things we expect the National Assembly to summon security heads and ask pointed questions as to. Beyond the defense of the budget, they need to ask questions about operations, really. If we have technology, we have satellite, we have manpower, they've been given the order to recruit. They say we don't need to decentralize the police. What kind of results are you getting? Why? What is the challenge?
Maybe to contribute to that before we go to the papers. I mean, if they could take on the Minister of Health, you know, asking him pointed questions about the performance of the previous budget and as proof of why we should approve this one. Maybe the same thing should be happening to the security agencies.
Because they shouldn't think that if you drive bulletproof cars, you're immune to these things. You apply the same roads. You're supposed to go back to your constituency
When
for
you
campaigns
retire.
and elections.
Okay.
And when you get to your constituency, I'm sure you get a feedback, live one.
But some of them have been getting.
So if they don't, if they feel that, oh yeah, we have to be politically correct and not do some of these things, good luck, no problem. Good luck to all of them. But we just hope that they do what they have to do, because funds, huge amount of money goes into security on a regular basis, and we don't see any reason. All we want are just results, basically, because don't forget, it's not your pocket money, politicians. It's for the country, for crying out loud. And so they had to ask you questions about some of these things. Well, that said, we'll go right into taking you through some of the dailies. In fact, take a look at Vanguard daily with what we've just highlighted, security in University of Abuja. 2 dons, 4 others abducted, which is what you see right there. The big one on the front page there. Just trying to have a further look at that. 2 dons, 4 others abducted as gunmen raid Uni Abuja. They got a lot of riders for you. Yeah, so that's it. Several riders, that one. Make of that what you will, gentlemen, lady. Deputy Governor, LBSCA differ on why 21-floor tower collapsed. Oh boy, are we doing this again? We're going back and forth as to what, why? Oh boy. Well, I don't know when security will stop being a challenge. And don't forget, if they did attack the NDA, kidnapped the military person at that time, and many just wonder, whoa, where else?
It's safe, right?
Yeah, oh, that's Vanguard anyways.
The lead story of the leadership newspaper is similar this morning. Schools beef up security as bandits attack Uni Abuja. If the school's fences are like that of I like the one
what are they beefing up?
described. That is only the front fence, no perimeter fence, it's just the front fence. Once you get
so what did they beef up? How did they beef it up?
Well, I guess you will find the story on page 4 of the leadership newspaper.
Do we ever even rely on? Oh, don't want to sound too silly.
Abduct 7 lecturers and children. ASU students, others react. Police vow to rescue victims. Nab perpetrators. Well, that's there's so many other stories you might. Oh, this one. Invasion of orderlies residence. Impunity taken too far. Supreme Court. That story is on page 6 of the leadership newspaper this morning. Mark.
Well, let's take a look at Daily Trust. They have this one. Ikoyi building collapses. Their focus this morning, outrage, agony as death toll hits 20. Many still trapped. Another 2-story caves in. That's also on the front page. Lawyer to sue government seeks compensation for victims' families. Experts blame Lagos for negligence. How I escaped from collapsed building. That's according to a laborer. Also yesterday on our news, you would have heard the story of a mother who had been at the site for 2 days, almost fixated to one spot, waiting for her daughter to be brought out and rescued. We have all of this. Families narrate ordeals as kidnappers abduct 2 professors, others at Uni Abuja. The signs, some people will say, were always there. And look at this, for those who have been nursing fears that the price of fuel could go up and there could be scarcity. NNPC dismisses fuel scarcity fears, says 1.7 billion litres in store. Okay, that's what the Daily Trust has on the front page for us.
Yeah, take a look at New Telegraph next. Anambra Guba. Igbo elders seek demilitarization of Southeast. Demand release of 5,000 detainees. Whoa, 5,000. Say heavy security build-up threat to free fair poll. 17 parties issue 72-hour ultimatum to INEC. You need to find out what about, well, who knows? Could it be connected with, well, yeah, you know, they're saddled with the responsibility of conducting elections. What about the PVCs? Could they be related? I know they usually have their inter-party advisory committee with interagency. They have different groups who meet, discuss these issues. So who knows? If the meeting couldn't address these issues, could it be why they issued this one? And what happens thereafter? But at the bottom strip, they equally keep tabs on that building collapse. So their focus is Ikoyi building collapse. Developers video slumps on site. 19 dead, 9 rescued as Sanwo-Olu orders LASBCA GM's suspension. 3 discharged, 6 still hospitalized. No cover-up for the truth. Lagos promises to foot medical bills of rescued victims. We must get to the bottom of this ghastly occurrence, Tinubu. Badabiamila Assad calls for measures to forestall recurrence. So, there you go. Oh, and speaking about fuel, they say FG stocks 1.7 billion liters for NGs. Well, there you go. That's a new telegraph.
The Daily Times is interested, well, keeping tabs on the Justice Hodley's home invasion fallout. Don't make judiciary the weeping child. Supreme Court warns other arms of government. Hey, sir, we all right? Orders full-scale independent probe of invasion of Justice Hodley's home. Alleges perpetrators wanted to kill her.
Whoa.
Says judiciary can't only bark, but can also bite. SAN storm CGN AGF offices in protest. Insist government must unearth those behind incidents.
Well, that's a serious allegation there.
I mean, you should. The language of the statements was very terse.
I think magistrates too. I don't think it needs any telling that they've got to be a lot more careful about some of these things. Yeah, how they are appointed will remain key to addressing a lot of these fundamental challenges of administration of justice in the country. Because if some people appoint you to certain places, they expect you to be, or chances are that you could be beholden to them, and in some cases detrimental to the fundamental ethics of the profession, you know, within which you operate, in this case, the noble profession, as they like to refer that as. So, who knows? But don't forget that big question. If they claim they were misled as the magistrate, by who? Somebody must have approached the magistrate to request for that. So who are those people? Why don't we start from there?
It's a lot of questions to ask Chamberlain, and most certainly answers being sought. Right above the nameplate, Nigeria needs $1.5 trillion to build infrastructure gap in 10 years. You're looking away. It's the president.
What's our plan to get it?
Well, he was actually speaking at COP26, asking foreign investors to come in. Well, the details are on the inside. In the meantime, 2022 budget, OAGF to gulp 10.470 billion naira. Find the details on the inside pages of the Daily Times newspaper today. Malcolm.
Well, we have The Guardian for you. Nigeria Air. Federal government disburses 6.25 billion on... Okay, well, it has... I wanted to put air. Gentlemen, pardon me this morning, but when I was reading this, Nigeria Air federal government disburses 6.25 billion naira on consultancy advisors. We might as well spend it on air, really, because we've been hearing a lot about this Nigeria Air, and it would seem that we're yet to see it. I mean, what is in the air is yet to be on the ground. For us to see, but who knows? Who knows just how soon this is going to materialize? It's a page 2 read for you. They have extensive write up on it, taking up most of the front page. Budgets 14.7 billion naira in 3 years. Qatar, Turkish, Ethiopian Airlines identified as technical partners. Stakeholders split over prospect and priority in pandemic and twilight of Buhari's government. Well, let us really hope that Nigeria Air is what materializes, not just ordinary air. Page 2 might give you all the details. It looks like a lot of the ministries are coming to the fore on the front page of The Guardian this morning. Nigerians pay 5.7 trillion naira for darkness 8 years after privatization. Payment for transformers, wires, poles persist as supply averages 4,000 megawatts. Fashola, Maman, El Rufai, Nas, others attempts fail to spark optimism in sector. Grid collapse averages 130 times in 8 years. EKEDC blames vandalization of installations for prolonged blackout. It's a page 2 read. I think that experiences might vary on the issue of electricity, depending on where you live. If you live in the Federal Capital Territory, well, if you live in Abuja, let me be more specific. I don't know about the outskirts, the suburbs. The chances are very high that you might witness some, steady power supply. I don't know what the experience is in Lagos. I know that certain parts of Lagos have an arrangement where the power supply is also steady. But other parts of the country, what has been the experience? So perhaps it is captured under this particular headline. Page 2 will give you all the details. 10 candidates signed peace pact over Anambra poll. Seek Kanu's release is also on the front page of The Guardian for you. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Well, on the front page of The Guardian, I think Marco is already referencing. I've heard about audio money, but this is air money that she's talking about now. Maybe I don't know.
I hope it materializes, because look at that. What? Consultancy advisors. How much are we then going to spend on the real stuff?
Well, some will tell you that consultancy is very expensive.
Wow. Well, Daily Independent is the next one, because when she spoke about power in that headline, it just may be that if you asked the last 5-6 ministers of power, what is the problem? They could almost give you 5 different answers. Well, look at Daily Independent right there. Workers flay contributory pension scheme. RU accumulated unremitted deductions. Want defined benefit scheme reinstated.
We have noticed that issues around this contributory pension scheme is coming up a little more frequently. Yesterday we read that there's been some borrowing from the pension fund.
Oh dear.
To the tune of 8 billion, or is it 8 trillion naira or so, from the 12 billion or trillion that people have contributed over time. So, and now this one.
Ideally, there shouldn't be anything wrong in when that kind of scenario happens. But given the kind of impression people have about governments generally,
trust.
That's why they think, don't go there, it's our money, don't touch it. That's what they always say, because look, government leaves, another comes, they will tell you, look, well, I didn't agree with what they did at that time. They could even be of the same party. So these things are not immune to political parties, really. Well, Justice Odili residence, that's what you see at the bottom straight. Supreme Court says invasion impunity taken too far. Siege appeared like mission to kill, maim her. Body of SANs confront AGF Malami, demands investigation. These are the kind of things that make citizens up in arms, on their guard all the time. Do what you can to defend yourself within the ambience of the law, because you don't want to hear a story afterwards, after the damage has been done. So better safe than sorry.
Really, really bad one, sad one there. Well, here's another one. Infrastructure deficit. That's from the Nigeria News Direct. Infrastructure deficit. FG needs $1.5 trillion to fix Nigerian roads. As subscribed to the president, stories on page 3, says Nigeria will accept investors.
Will they come?
Well, that statement put out by Garba Shehu says, government has put up all the infrastructure necessary and all of that.
What about security?
Well, it is an infrastructure, so it's just so. The second writer says, participate in launch of global methane pledge. Find that story on page 3. Ikoyi building collapse. Sanwo-Olu suspends GM Lagos Building Control Agency. And right above the nameplate, so many other stories. Fuel scarcity, we have 1.7 billion later PMS reserves as subscribed to Kiari. That's on page 16 of the paper today.
Oh, so you see, it's. I mean, sometimes you even ask yourself, what the investors will look to. What has the country done to encourage local investors, or even encourage them to invest locally? So they look to those things first.
If local investors are not having it smooth,
how would you then treat us? So if you're treating investors like this, I wonder, because local investors are investors.
So it's unfortunate that the perception out there among many people is government officials, authorities at various levels seem to prioritize foreigners more than locals, and it is very sad.
That's a mistake they make.
It's very sad and painful. Remember that conversation, I will reiterate it again, that we had with the former PRO of NASME, who was saying, look, the kind of controls, the kind of gag, so to speak, put on small and medium enterprises can barely allow them to survive. So all those regulatory apparatus, levies, taxes, and all those things, they need massive review.
Well, there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back and delve into our focus for today. Stay with us.
High-rise buildings like these ones, being built by 4 homes, comprising 3 blocks of multi-story buildings, are a common sight in highbrow Ikoyi. While some are completed and are already occupied, some others are still under construction. Considering the location of these buildings, not many would exercise any fear about the quality of the buildings. Surprisingly, however, one of the buildings, a 21-story, caved in broad daylight, causing chaos, confusion and anxiety among the residents. Shortly after the collapse, with many people still trapped under the rubble, fire trucks and excavators were deployed in the rescue process. Discussions soon moved to the factors responsible for the collapse. The Lagos State Deputy Governor, who was one of the early callers at the site, announced that although the contractors got approval for a 21-story building, the quality of materials was compromised. An expert in the industry also weighs in on the collapse.
Now, what is happening? I'll tell you just a little history, because the government has a big fault to this. In 1986, the National Building Code was drafted by all the professional bodies in the construction industry, the 7 of them. This National Building Code was not signed until 20 years after it's drafted by the then Minister Mimiko. We're in 2021 today, 15 years after the National Building Code has not been passed by the National Assembly.
As rescue efforts continue, many will be hoping that the government will bring to book those responsible for this latest collapse. Hopefully, that will send a strong warning to anyone undertaking such exercise in the future.
Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, continuing our focus on that unfortunate incident that happened in Lagos. We've got Mr. David Machekudumi, who is an architect. He's a chairman of Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos chapter. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
A very sad development there, but, there usually will be a lot of ifs and buts about this kind of scenario when it happens. And yes, we've seen that it has happened before. But your profession, deeply involved in terms of, in the scheme of things, how the right thing should have been done. We did hear you talk about some of what you think the challenge is. But if you could give us maybe like a wider picture of what should have been in the first place and how what went through your mind when this happened.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I want to console with the families of those who have lost their lives in this mayhem or disaster. Now, as it is well practiced globally, I mean, like we are in Nigeria, we use the British system of law. We're practicing the American system of government, which is that's a confusion on its own. Yesterday I talked about the National Building Code. Now, the process of development is that you engage an architect, you give him your brief to design, and then he has to involve other consultants in terms of a structural engineer, mechanical. But before then, at least there are certain things that has to take place. Now, for the structural engineer to determine what the foundation will be like, there must be a soil test to know the strength of the soil. And that determines what type of foundation you use. Now, you put in the application, have a planning permit, and thereafter you have the you have the planning permit, and thereafter you have the building approval. As you can see, I belong to two worlds, and I've practiced both here and abroad. And like I said earlier, I mean, there is a code, a national building code. It's global. Every country has the national building code. And we're in Nigeria today, 36 years after. Can you imagine? We can say this is our own national building code. There's been a lot of work on it. And all we just need is that enabling law to make it effective.
My apologies for butting in. What would the building code do to the process? How will it be able, for instance, to help us help us avoid this kind of scenario?
Right. Thank you. Now, the building code gives a minimal requirement for materials to be used, for the quality of the materials, for the labor and the standard. We have the NSO, Nigerian Standard Organization of Nigeria. It's such a shame. It's too late to cry when the head is off. I was at the site for almost about 4 hours yesterday. The NSO was just coming in to come and take samples. Samples for what? When the head is off, you're coming to take the samples of what? We have various manufacturers in Nigeria. The cement manufacturers, iron rod. What is happening?
What standards do they
exactly.
hold them to?
You know, and then, I mean, the government still needs to do more. I mean, we have the likes of the NAFDAC. You must see a NAFDAC number. Yeah. I mean, if you go abroad, you buy a certain materials, even ordinary plug, you see the identification number of the standard. That is, this is verified to meet the British standard, BS so number. But in Nigeria, my dear brothers, where are we?
So, but
even ordinary block,
the
block that you make to build the concrete block or the hollow block, we're supposed to have it embedded, in it.
So right now that building code hasn't seen the light of day, what standards is it that the professionals, what do they abide by?
Now, in most cases, it's only when you engage maybe what I might put as a 5-star contractor. I mean, the likes of Julius Berger or the likes of Kappa and Dabato and the rest, because they are from, I mean, they follow either the British standards or European standard. As at today, can we say that we have a building regs? What is a building regs? A building regs comes out of the domestication of the National Building Code, because that building regs, or building regulation, as what we just short form of it is the building regs, has to do with a particular area. Now, if you look at construction in Ikoyi, it's different to the construction here, because you have a solid ground here. Now, the wind in Victoria Land comes with salt. So the kinds of material you use has to be specified, and this begins where, you finish the design. In your specification, you have to specify these materials to be used to meet up this standard. But as I said, I do it to meet up with the British standard or to meet up with this European EC, whatever standard.
Now, if you look at that site, you were there. There was supposed to be that building that collapsed is like one of three.
Yes.
And one wonders, what happens? There is just one of the three that went down. And in the manner that it even went down, it's like a stack of sliced bread, so to speak. It's even chilling to imagine. And there are those who are pointing fingers at the architect.
Yeah, thank you. I won't say you point fingers on the architect, but at the same time, I'm ashamed. I'm talking for myself. I'm ashamed to be, an architect or a professional in the building industry, and this is happening. Now, when you look at that structure, it's like what I would call implosion, where everything just came down. It's like maybe it's ignited or, because I can't say yet or until when the investigation is done. Is it a structural defect? It's not that it's badly designed. The architect does the design and the structural engineer will determine what kind of structures and things. But hold on. It's a pity where our country is today. I talk about standard. You look at the first two towers that were built, and you look at the one that collapsed. In a nutshell, what's the cost of cement at this time last year? What's the cost of cement today? And are we getting the right quality? Who is checking, or who is monitoring, or who is checking the standard of the cement? And everyone, with the situation on the country, the economic situation, everyone wants to cut corner. Because if you're buying a bag of cement around this time last year for less than 2,000, let's say 1,800, and today the bags of cement is costing, about 4,100 per bag. And are you sure you're still getting the same quality? There's so many adulterated materials out there. And who is checking? So I must say, let the government do a forensic, thorough investigation onto this, because the cost of this, you can't determine it.
Yeah.
Because it's when the investigation is done, whether the foundation is weak or, all sort of things. There are a lot,
Yesterday, the deputy governor was there, and some of the things he said was that because there was that disparity or confusion as to did they give approval, what did they give approval for, were they sticking to what was approved? And then we heard him say that, they gave approval, that the problem is not with the approval, the problem is with the construction. So as much as one thought, okay, isn't that what the forensic audit is supposed to tell us based on some of those key facts? But if he then says the problem is with the construction, how does that come across to you?
Yes. Number one is to do with who are the consultants, who the contractor is. And if the problem is to do with the construction, definitely on the government side, they're supposed to have known, because there's what we call state certification. I mean, I'll say Lagos State is doing well to some extent, but they need to do more. Because in the last 10 years, I think the urban and fiscal planning and urban development control law has been revised and, putting in all what needs to be in terms of, regulations and things like that. But in terms of state certification, those monitoring it should have known that, that, oh, there's a defect in this or something is happening in this, there's this crack, and put a stop, So, I mean, to now say, yes, is the construction? Yes, definitely. I mean, what will have caused the collapse if not for defect in the structural element of the building?
Is it possible that when the architect does his job, hands over to the structural engineer and several other persons who are supposed to work there, is it possible for them to adjust that? For instance, we hear people say, well, they were trying to adjust the design or just take it a little further than what was designed. Do those kind of things happen?
Yes and no. You see, all the consultants in the built environment are involved from the inception to completion. So there's no stage where the architect has to hands off. We all work together. And, it's just the beginning is like taking a brief. You want your dream to come true, Yes, you come up with the design, but you still have to sit down with the structural engineer to say, will this work? Now, you look at this space. Why do we have this long span and it's standing, And not only that, even during the construction, you all attend site meetings, inspect and find out that, okay, does this work? Does this conform with? And along the line where you see maybe, oh, this might not work or this will work, you have to put heads together and see how it will, I mean, let's look at, there's so many structures all over the world, under the water, above the water, and it's all science.
Well, as my colleague said, we should be going to Abuja shortly to take the second guest. But this panel that the Lagos State government is setting up, involving your side of the construction industry and several other stakeholders in the building and construction industry, how optimistic are you that we will have something great come out of it?
Yeah, thank you very much. You said how optimistic I am.
Or otherwise.
Inverted comma. Because not only myself, the Institute has been involved in series of investigation, tribunals, name it. And what's the outcome of it today? Sometimes we hear the white paper will come out and, there's been a lot of investigation. I mean, this is not the first time we're having this kind of incident. 2008 or 2009, where so many children's lives were lost. 2013, the same thing. Maybe around 2019 or 2018, the same thing. Have they brought anybody to books to say, yes, this is our finding? I'm sorry, my dear brother, you know what Nigerian is? It's so pathetic. It's sad. We do investigation. What's the outcome of? Look at the answer thing. Everybody is waiting to hear the results. Now, all we had, they're giving another two, So I would say 50-50.
Another segment of that, of your industry that's seldom talked about are the people who work at sites. One wonders if there is any form of insurance or any protection of sorts for them, even in the codes, just as you're saying.
Oh, yes. It's clearly stated in the National Building Code. And when we talk about domesticating it, bringing it to be building regulations, for a particular state or a particular area, part of the prerequisite is insurance. But at the same time, I ask myself, is the insurance company helping at all? I'll give you a good example. As an architect or a consultant in the built environment, first and foremost is you must have a professional indemnity insurance. so that when things like this happen, it might not be due to your negligence, but, vicarious liability, maybe one of the staff or, human error. But our insurance company, I've been involved in a lot of projects. Our insurance company wants to take everything from you. Because I'll just give you an example. I'm being paid maybe just 1 million naira as my professional fee. To get that, indemnity insurance, because the cost of the project is 100 million naira. Are you with me? The insurance company will be asking for almost about 37 or 47 million naira premium. And it's so sad because we try to involve them and let's look at how it's best practiced globally. I won't lie to you, sometimes, I get my insurance from abroad, my professional indemnity insurance, and this is spread, along the duration of the construction. And it's, pocket friendly because I know if I'm getting 10 naira monthly as part of my fee, if 2 naira is going to that something, for the professional indemnity insurance, quite good. But here, everybody wants to, be rich overnight.
It's a global village. We can't do things in isolation with the best practices internationally. But to give us some answers, hopefully, as to all of these building committee tribunals that have been set up, what has become of any one of them, should we be optimistic or otherwise? We'll head to Abuja. Mark.
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us in our studios this morning Mr. Kunle Awobodu, who is the immediate past president, Nigerian Institute of Building as the NIOB. He's also the immediate past president, Building Collapse Prevention Guild, BCPG. You're welcome to our studios this morning.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers.
I do not know how you, as Chamberlain would say, internalized this news when it broke, this very big tragedy, which we now understand has taken the lives of about 20 people already. Seeing such a building of that magnitude just go down like a pack of dominoes must have, I don't know what it must have done to you, especially when you have sat on a committee that's supposed to prevent the collapse of buildings, at least in Nigeria. What were your thoughts on it?
I was astonished. That problem of frequent building collapse has been my fault for many years to prevent it. I've been leading those who believe in appropriate construction of buildings. So when it happened, I felt very sad that as if all our efforts were not yielding result. That day was November 1st.
Yes, the 1st of November.
1st of November. I went down into self-introspection. Say, why should this be happening in Ikoyi of all places? But coincidentally, a building collapsed in Ikoyi, Glover Court, exactly on November 1st, 2019. The same November 1st, it's rare to hear any news about building collapse in Ikoyi. I felt sad. On this note, I profoundly commiserate with the families of the deceased. Building is my profession. That actually serves as a point of fulfillment for every human being that aspires to own a shelter. But when such a profession is creating or sending people early to graves, it is not encouraging.
It is
when this news came, or let me say yesterday, I received a message from my colleagues in Australia who offer to come and assist us in Nigeria
In the
to
rest?
end building collapse.
Okay.
I felt embarrassed and insulted.
Why?
Because we have competent professionals in this country.
So what is that? Is a problem?
Those who call me, who send messages from Australia, were builders in Australia. Let's say Australia Institute of Building.
So the question is,
So the question now,
what exactly is the gap? If you say that we have
Yes.
professionals and they, I mean, because I'm sure we're yet to investigate to find out those who were responsible for erecting this building, or even to know what happened, to know whether it was their fault or whether it wasn't their fault. There have been a number of stories as to what was approved and what was eventually erected, and that disparity as well. The question is, if we do have professionals, are there professionals who stick with the ethics of the profession?
yeah. What my colleague, architect Majakobi just mentioned now, was in the design area. There are two major areas in this construction: design part and construction parts. The law has favored the design aspect, where you must have qualified architect to design for you and qualified structural engineer to handle the engineering design. You might have other engineers like electrical or mechanical engineers. So they vet those those drawings at that department, Ministry of Physical Planning. But after potential developers have been given their approved building plans, nobody bothers really to monitor who will handle the building construction. I've been involved in many building investigations in this country, and I've identified all along this peculiar problem, which is site. Most of the failures occur from errors committed on site. Therefore, there is need to pay particular attention to site activities. And we have a law. The federal government has taken care of that. Recognized that since 1989 by this Builders Act that established Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria to make sure that we have competent hands to manage building production on site. So, this came into greater awareness after the collapse of 5-story building at number 63, Massey Street, Lagos Island. So the regulation, the Lagos state government now came out with LAFCA regulations. And this section 4, subsections 2, highlighted the importance that on every building site, all over Lagos State, there must be a registered builder. Then, if you go to section 4 and subsection 3, it stated the punishment when failure occurs on site. Those who will be held responsible.
What is the punishment? Can you let us know what it is?
When it is for negligence, you'll be held liable. So there are two things I want you to identify there. When you say a registered builder should be on site, it is to hold somebody accountable. A job given to so many people tends to lead to gambling. But when you have identified the actual professional that will be held responsible, then such a professional will wake up. The problem we are having in our industry is this: quackery. Quackery. That's the major cause of building collapse in Nigeria all along. Because people are looking at the profit, pecuniary gains on site, rather than the risks. And we are able to confirm this. So, now, by the time you introduce punishment for failure on site, many of those people who are looking for quick money through site activities will disappear. So simple. Myself and Maja Kodumi, actor Maja Kodumi, we have been working together on this for long. When the Minister of Works and Housing was governor in Lagos State, he set up a technical committee led by General Rees, now retired as an architect. The present governor, Sanwo-Olu, Jide Sanwo-Olu, was the vice chairman of that committee. Myself and architect Maja Kodumi were members. We were tasked with all other leaders of 7 professional bodies. We were tasked to try to resolve this frequent collapse of building in Lagos.
So
by coming, we now came out with this physical planning law and urban development in 2010.
yeah, 2 things I've heard you say. You've talked about the fact that builders, there's quackery in the industry, and as such, that could be possible. That could also be holding the industry to ransom. The second I've heard you also mention is monitoring. Who monitors what happens at the site? And we've seen that there are gaps there. I'd like you to expatiate on these 2 major, especially in the light of the fact that we've seen the suspension of the
GM Labka.
Yes, GM Labka by the Lagos State government. There'll be questions because we understand that they have been speaking. We understand that the site was closed for about 4 months before now, and it was recently opened. There'll be questions as to why was it closed, what led to the reopening of that particular site. I know that these are all questions for investigation, but perhaps from your own background, you might be able to help us into, what exactly happens with monitoring and, especially of sites like that. We'll do this when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
They come back.
While families of the victims mourn the loss of their loved ones, many questions remain unanswered. Questions particularly relating to the structure. Who approved the construction? Who supervised the work? Details of a letter now gone viral on social media, dated 20th of February 2020, addressed to one Mr. Femi Oshibono, and written by Mr. Muritala Olawale of Prowess Engineering Services, suggests that trouble may have been brewing before now. The letter notifies the client of its decision to withdraw its structural consultancy services from the project. The letter reads, quote, "We can guarantee the integrity of the first 2 buildings and also works done up to the 4th floor of the 3rd building, supervised by us, provided specifications have been met in terms of the required concrete strength. This we do not have control over, as we do not have the concrete cube test results for each stage of the building till date." I call the numbers listed in the letter repeatedly.
The number you dialed is switched off.
Channels Television also tried to locate the address of Prowess Engineering Services seen in the letter. Here's what we found. We also visited the office of the Lagos State Building Control Agency with the same objective, but we were told the general manager and communications officer had moved to the site of the collapsed Jared Terraces since the incident occurred. Many more questions come up even now. Who leaked the letter by Prowess Engineering Services notifying Fourscore Limited of its decision to pull out of the Jared Terraces project? How come the address entered for Prowess Engineering Services is not found in GRA as indicated in the letter? Or if it is where it is said to be at number 30A, Ladoke Akintola Street, GRA, why is it yet another construction site? And as relief efforts continue, answers to these questions are sought. It is hoped that the steps taken by the government will go a long way to calm frayed nerves. Bukola Samuel Wemimo, Channels Television News.
What matters enough in this world?
Well, yes, we still have our guests in the studio, Mr. Kunle Awobodo. That's our correspondent, Bukola Samuel Wemimo, trying to do an investigation there, or carrying out an investigation on a letter which has been going round, showing that I think the structural engineers withdrew from the site sometime in February 2020. But we have not been able to confirm that from the report which she was able to put together there. But coming back to the issues, two of them which we raised before we went on break, and that is something you can also take into consideration because all manner of things have come to the fore since the collapse of this particular building. Monitoring is a big issue. We've seen several building collapse. People have talked about how people get approval for certain number of floors, especially the multi-story, and then we see that what is approved for them is not what they're building. How does monitoring work in your own experience in Lagos State?
Thank you very much. I earlier mentioned the physical planning and urban development law that our committee work on or reform and produce in Lagos State. In anticipation of the importance of check and balances in the monitoring process and plan approval end, we decided to separate the Ministry of Physical Planning into three. Planning, we created planning agency or planning permit agency, and then Lagos State Building Control Agency. The third one was urban, I think regeneration or renewal.
The building control is the LAPSCA. Right?
Is the LAPSCA. You see, we fought a battle to be able to separate the two. That let us consider Nigerians or investors or tenants that have been suffering from this effect of building collapse. Planning permit, after approval, you have given out approval, having discovered that what people build on site were at conflict with the approved building plans and suspected connivance of certain elements in the planning permit, in the approval sector, planning approval, building plan approval sector. We now say, let us create another agency that will be going around on monitoring, that were not involved in the approval, to go and check on site if approval, if what they are constructing on site conforms with the approved building plans. And that was the assignment.
So how come they're failing? Because we're still saying building collapse, even after the establishment of this monitoring board.
You know, after this law came into operation, some of us now discover some limitations. That Lagos, the development in Lagos has been so rapid, and Lagos is quite large in terms of construction, building construction development.
Do they
so
lack,
what
do,
we
do
now
they lack
do,
capacity to do it all by themselves?
Capacity, you have mentioned the issue. And I made a lot of noise about that. Today, what we are having today, Ikoyi has one district supervising officer, in conjunction with VI, Victoria Island. Then Ikoyi has just 6 monitoring officers, while VI has 6 monitoring officers. Then look at Lekki Peninsula, about 755 square kilometer area, having, although 2 units. We have Etiosa East, Etiosa West, 1 supervisor, but 6 monitoring officer each. How can you get result? It was impossible.
Is that the status as of today?
That I'm telling you, that is as of today, that is what is in practice. So, when they notice contravention, some of the problems that are happening that might have also led to that collapse of building, they will first of all serve contravention notice. Then, that same day by law, you must serve stop work order. So that is when you will mark, or no, stop work order. Then in the next 48 hours, you will come back. If the contravention persists, you will now mark and say seal up. You seal the site. But to seal, you might just mark, but you can't see. How can one person, 6 of them, one person, go and face such danger? So what now happens is this. You will go and report at enforcement. You will now open a file about that side. Then report at to your head, who will now contact the enforcement unit. Something that's supposed to take place almost immediately could take 1 week or more than 1 week.
So from what we hear now, this particular site was sealed off for 4 months. But I don't know if you've been able to confirm that is true. And that it just came back. What do you think was responsible for that? We're running out of time.
Yes, let me quickly hand up. That side, according to information, this is inside information, that they see that side. The monitoring officers were so scared, according to information from within, that some of the guys in that compound were firing guns, and they asked them to sit down. The monitoring officers that went there, they threatened them. So I also learned later that the commissioner went there with the support of police to arrest those people in that.
So there's
that
sometimes
side.
intimidation from developers.
Yes, they were arrested. But how they were released is a problem. Let me just chip in this. Ikoyi, all monitoring officers are afraid to work in Ikoyi because you don't know who is the owner of that property or that site. They were highly influential. So, some of the monitoring officers are handicapped. While we were investigating the collapse of this building on Massey Street, we interviewed some of these staff. How many of them were monitoring Lagos Island, where you have any area boys to go and stop work? About 2 or 3 So they were just going there maybe to collect some gift. You know, there's also corruption in the system. So to avoid this kind of a problem, we have been involved in this thing for many years. The issue of a synagogue and Lekki Gardens. As the president of Building Collapse Prevention Grid, we constituted a committee. We investigated that of scientific investigation, that of synagogue, and also went ahead, supported by Nigerian police, because of our efforts to investigate that of Lekki Gardens. Lekki Garden collapsed on March 8th. So, at the end of the day, the outcome of our investigation, we went to court. BCPG investigation reports were being used to prosecute those who are involved. Just like Professor Wole Soyinka lamented recently. What came out of that? Adjournment, up to today, no result. One of the major persons that took part in the construction of, or the MD of that company, that took part in the construction of that of synagogue, who happened to be a petroleum engineer, Quackery, died recently. So look at how that case will suffer a setback. That of Lekki Gardens, I don't know if he has been withdrawn from court. We are no longer hearing anything. And our members went there as witnesses, cross-examined. So this Massey Street investigation, which I was a member of the committee, up to today, where is the BBC have been asking?
Big questions, Mr. Kunle Awobodu. And I want to believe that there are questions that perhaps government itself will be able to provide some answers to, because this one, 20 lives already, I mean, and many more. We do not know how many more will be brought out alive. Our prayers are that, you know, there will be miracles from this particular site, because it will be nothing short of a miracle if people are pulled out alive from the kind of rubble that we see. I'm sorry, we're totally out of time. We wish we could continue with this segment, but we have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Kunle Awobodu is immediate past president, Nigerian Institute of Building as the NIOB, and also the immediate past president, Building Collapse Prevention Guild. Thank you so much for coming to our studios in Abuja this morning. It's over now to you, gentlemen, in Lagos.
Well, yeah, it does appear as though government have to look themselves in the mirror if they want to address some of these challenges. But Mr. Michael, listen to what he said about how this building was reopened in the first place. Is that what professionals face in that sector?
Oh, yes. Now, there are a lot of factors. Number one, you seal up a site. Definitely there are a process that you need to do before the site can be open. We can tell now whether the process went through. Also, you have the factor of the so-called or influential, you know, where they have armed men at their site. You, the monitoring agency, you cannot enter the site because you see an armed man. What's the government doing about this monitoring agency? Are you giving them, even giving them an armed men too? There are levels, you know, you could see either a task force and maybe one hop. You know, there's a difference between mobile police and ordinary police. Yeah. You know, that's one. Then there's also the factor from the area boys. There is no construction site in Lagos that you don't have all these miscreants coming to disturb. That's also, the other factor is, like Kunle Awobodu said, we've been on this for more than a decade. Now, does the government have the capacity? No. In a best practice world globally, we have what we call accredited checkers, accredited certifier, third-party certifier. And these are other, for instance, let me take you as you're the architect that designed this table. He works with the government, but you have thousands to look at. I can be your accredited checker, where not only just looking at the design or looking at the drawing, but to monitor. But I must have a professional indemnity insurance that will qualify me that, yes, this project is worth 1 billion naira. And the risk is to me that I must give the right report on that. That's another factor. Another factor is to do with the material testing laboratories. Part of the process, they're supposed to be continuous material testing, in terms of the cube test for the concrete, in terms of the test for the iron rod, in terms of other materials to be tested continuously. Because when you do the cube test, you do the first 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, and lastly 28 days to set, okay, the concrete you are putting on this first floor, does it meet the requirement? Is it well cured? Even when you're going all that 21 floors, you still have to do for every floor. But we only have one material testing laboratory in Lagos, which is not adequate. Now the government needs to outsource, need to give, certified material testing laboratory. University of Lagos has one, built and I think sponsored by Julius Berger. Yaba College of Technology has one. But if you take your materials to this place, for me, I get the best results from the Unilag Material Testing Laboratory because I'm more comfortable, certified. Yes, there's no, how will I put it, compromise in it. But an officer in the state laboratory that hasn't got his salary maybe for some months or whatever, or I want a quick result, it's just a matter of just a little token.
But it's the same, like the material testing laboratory that said, that the GM said in February this year, that they are not going to tolerate collapsed buildings anymore at an event.
Thank you. And if a structural stability test has been done on this particular building, and if that is the reason why it is sealed, there's a lot to be answered.
Well, just on the side, when you mentioned area boys, the miscreants you call them the other time, I was wondering if there was any way those elements are captured in the laws. But I'm just wondering, now that this is where we are, this is our situation right now, and it is not something limited to Lagos, it's a national issue, but we're talking about Lagos now. And we have learned quite a few lessons. What must we do to ensure that we do not find ourselves here again? The laws are there, and a number of things are still happening. I'm just wondering, what in your opinion will be not just a quick fix, but as permanent a solution as possible to end this once and for all?
Yes. Like the last speaker and what we've been talking about is capacity building. Enough is enough of this. Let's get everyone involved. The government cannot do it alone. So why not outsource? Don't look at the money-making side of it. Look at the people's life you're putting in danger. The Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Architects has taken so many things upon themselves where it's not just the awareness about the National Building Code, but also we're collaborating with the state government to have all registered architects in Lagos State in their, in their, what's it called, in their list. So the moment a drawing is submitted, or the moment you are monitoring, the project, you know who to quickly call upon. The National Building Code, like I said, is only for 4 major parts: pre-design, design, construction, and post-construction. Is clearly stated, and everyone is involved at this stage, and all it involves is capacity building. Where the government lacks, why not the professional bodies, collaborating, and, that's the way it's done abroad.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, what we all need to know, the developers, everyone in that sector is that, look, all of these structures and measures that are put in place is to protect everybody, including yourselves, those developers, because look at what has happened now. They can't get any of those lives that have been lost back. So I guess it needs no telling that we all need to do what is right to get these things going on. Maybe we'll start with the building code. Since the speaker has spoken up about commiserating with families, maybe they should take it from there. Get the building code up and running. I want to thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Mr. David Machikudume is the chairman in Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos chapter. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Three weeks after hosting an emergency meeting to brief leaders of political parties participating in the Anambra election, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, is again meeting with them, this time to lay to rest all lingering concerns. First, he assures them of INEC's resolve to go on with the election.
Let me reassure you that the Commission is ready for the Anambra State governorship election next weekend. We have moved all non-sensitive materials for the election to the 21 local government areas of the state. As usual, the Central Bank of Nigeria is handling the delivery of sensitive materials to the state on schedule.
However, he has some concerns, especially as it affects the turnout of voters for the exercise.
Voters were encouraged to seize the opportunity of the continuous voter registration exercise to transfer to the new polling units most convenient for them. Many did not do so. This can be partly attributed to the security situation in the state, which has affected the Commission's pre-election outdoor activities, including voter education and sensitization. Consequently, out of the 5,720 polling units in Anambra State, 86, representing 1.5%, have no voters at all.
He is not the only one concerned. The political parties share his apprehension, especially since the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in the state is still in the den of kidnappers.
The people of Anambra are scared stiff and have been cowed to stay indoors for the greater part of the days in the last few months. For a proper, well-credentialed poll with complements of acceptable electoral best practices to be held in an environment as this is most unlikely. It is acknowledgement of this disincentive which might usher high voter apathy.
A wider stakeholders meeting is expected to hold next week in Awka, the state capital, where INEC will interact with all the candidates, civil society organizations, the media, security agencies, traditional rulers, as well as religious and community leaders. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Bishop Matthew Kuko joins us next. He's the convener of the National Peace Committee. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, you're in Awka as we speak, and there's so much, many wondering what is the current scenario. Is it safe for me to come join you, for instance?
Well, Chairman, thank you very much, and good morning from Awka in Anambra State. Where I currently am. You earn money from talking, so you should have no problem coming to Anambra. I think, first of all, I mean, it's we had a very smooth journey. There's quite a lot of security all over the place, which gives confidence, but also, we'll see how that plays out, facilitating, voter turnout and facilitating the process tomorrow. So, I mean, when the elections do happen.
At this point in time, I mean, we can't underestimate the importance and essence of peace at all levels. So this must be very significant. In fact, one of the most significant events that people expect to happen before the elections. But, there's always this impression they have as to whether or not, after that is signed, the commitment of the parties that are involved, will they uphold what they have signed to? Those are usually the concerns that people have.
Well, first of all, I mean, our being present here is largely a hand-holding exercise. It's one way of telling INEC we are here to support the good work that they have done and continue to do, is to tell the people of Anambra and by extension the people of Nigeria that we are here by your side to support and to encourage you. Anambra's significance in the politics of Nigeria cannot be lost on anyone. This is the home of the late Nnamdi Azikiwe. This is the home of the late Alex Ekwebe. This is the home of the late Pius Okibo, one of the world's leading economists. This is the home of Chuba Okadipo. This is the home of of Cardinal Arinze. This is the home of some of the most illustrious and prominent sons of this country. So you can almost say that it is almost imperative that elections should be able to go on peacefully in Anambra. So essentially, we're here to encourage people. The signing of the peace accord, I liken it to the matrimonial promises that two people make when they come to get married, and they invite people to come and see them or witness to their commitment to live peacefully. But of course, there will always be problems. So we are here, we encourage people to sign the peace accord, but also in order to make it, to impose a sense of moral obligation on the contestants to commit themselves to playing by the rules, and also to encourage the voters.
Well, Bishop, it's also the home of late Ojukwu, who himself kept saying, look, as much as possible, we should never have another war in Nigeria. But getting that message of peace that you talked about across to other people, percolating that information of ensuring peace, maintaining peace, that is where the problem is really, because at the end of the day, those who signed the peace accords are not the ones on the streets. It's their supporters on both sides of the divide, or the several sides of the divide. How do we percolate that conversation around peace down to the people?
Thank you very much. The problem in Nigeria is that people suddenly have lost a sense of who they are and a sense of dignity. The whole country is has been a crime scene. People are hungry. People are jobless. People don't see a correlation between the sufferings, the pains that they go through to put people in power and the corresponding rewards. There is very little measurable improvement in the qualities of the lives of our people. These are things we cannot take away. You cannot talk about peace or just as an absence of war. So to the extent that the Nigerian political elite has really not fast-tracked the issues of improving in measurable terms the quality of the lives of our people, it is very challenging to ask people to be peaceful, because perhaps the greatest disruptor of peace is hunger. It's the environment around which our people live. So we make these appeals, but they're just moral exhortations. They have to be matched by concrete actions and activities on the side of political actors. On this score, nobody needs to tell the Nigerian politician that we really have not been able to walk the talk. So we engage in the process, but we also have to continue to encourage our people. People like me are called upon to make peace and to talk about peace. But I have a moral obligation to tell the people who are in power constantly that the commitment we made to our people, they don't feel a sense of that commitment. And I think it will be, I will have a crisis with myself if I encourage Nigerians to go out and vote and perform their duties. And then those who have been elected, I turn a blind eye to the conditions around which are. So this is why you find us constantly intervening in the process. It's not out of bad will. It is in order that the wheels can align and our country can progress. Because truth be told, everybody wants peace in Nigeria or in any society. The question is the condition under which peace is being extracted and under which you're asking people to live in peace. So really, the whole struggle to survive in Nigeria as a result of conditions created, by the very poor architecture of governance. This is what is making peace such an elusive commodity for us in Nigeria. But as I said, every election gives us an opportunity. And the quality and caliber of men who are running for office in Anambra, it's a bit of a pity there's no man on the ballot. But I think the quality of men who are running for office in Anambra suggests very clearly that the people of Anambra have a choice, namely to come out and pick a candidate of their choice. And as I said, I know almost all the actors. Each and every one of them comes with substantial credentials of experience and exposure.
Well, Bishop, the issue you raised now about how come people do not come out to vote, which is how are we sure that our lives are going to be any better? It hasn't been any better since all these elections have been holding. And it's quite a significant one. Even General Brotai, former chief of the army, said the same thing. Look, it's not only the absence of war, it's the provision of basic infrastructure for people and ensuring that these things get to the people. That's one of the ways in which we can guarantee peace. What assurance can we give to the people of Anambra State this time around that if they come out and vote, their votes will count and it will count for development?
Well, I think you and I will be taking a great risk if we were to commit, because we have beyond just moral authority. We cannot compel the politician of today to act well. But, as Nigerians and as a priest, I encourage our people. The Bible, the book of Lamentation is not what we should spend a lot of our time reading. We should move on because there is still the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible. So there's a lot of things that are happening in Nigeria. I mean, as we were driving yesterday, coming from Enugu to Oka, the conditions of the roads across the east. I mean, this is really something that is quite troubling. And upon inquiry, I think somebody made a point, that a lot of the roads around here are largely roads that are called what we call federal roads. I think that very many people will be very encouraged, and I also must concede that this government has also made some appropriate noises in terms of road reconstruction. But truth be told, we have had these stories for over 20, 30 years. A lot, humongous sums of money have been sunk on road construction. We never see the roads. They've been sunk on providing electricity. We never see electricity. They've been sunk on providing welfare. We never see the welfare. Indeed, what is very surprising, but also shockingly embarrassing for us in Nigeria, is that the areas in which the country is dysfunctional and failing so badly, those are the areas into which bottomless sums of money are being sunk, and Nigerians don't see the result. So for me, it's not enough to encourage people to vote. People are not stupid. Our people are wise. Even they don't have to have gone to school. People can, if they see a measurable change in their lives, in the conditions around which they live, then it will generate enough enthusiasm for people to go out and vote. But voter apathy is right across the world, but voter apathy in Nigeria or in Africa has consequences. It's not like the United States and other settled democracies where whether you vote or you don't vote, the trains are going to run on time. Whether you vote or you don't, whether you elect the right person, it will not affect the quality of school and education and health that you have in your environment. But for us in Nigeria and Africa, there's always a war, a battle of life and survival, in part because you vote for the wrong person, you could easily become a small dot in a big cycle. You vote for the wrong person, you could easily end up with no road to your village or no school in your village or no health facility. So it is these attitudes that are also generating tension and making people feel very frustrated. I'm just prayerfully hoping that the Nigerian political elite can become more appreciative of the sense of anxiety that ordinary citizens face, and the correlation between the volatility in our system, and their inability to perform and qualitatively change the lives of our people. Nigerians are not asking for paradise. They're just saying, if we make this sacrifice, by God, let us see some measurable change in our lives.
In what way, Bishop, do you see us compelling the executives across board, especially at the states, from what you have said now, to perform and make life better for people? Because from what you have said now, unless people have a basic measure of confidence, I mean, they would continue, just as you said, voter apathy is like a protest of the people. So in what way do you think we can maybe set up a system to compel performance by people who are elected into office?
You know, it's only in Nigeria that people pretend that maybe protest on the street is not honorable. I get some people who say to me, you know, you are a bishop, you shouldn't be saying the things you're saying. Of course, protest was honorable when it was against apartheid. Protest was honorable when it takes place in America against the killing of Floyd. Protest is honorable elsewhere, but not in our country. I think that the challenge is for you and I to move, because the most criminal segment of the Nigerian society is the elite. And the elite are midway between, you know, the middle class, as they are midway between the tyranny at the top and then the poor people at the bottom. Now, unfortunately, the Nigerian political elite have found adequate comfort in exploiting even the destructive structures that we find on the ground, because that is how people are making tons and tons and tons of money, by subverting the system. It is only the elite, the middle class, that has the capacity. And if people showed enough interest in the quality of life around them, Nigeria will change. But because the elite has the mistaken notion that they can buy their own generator, they can provide their own water, they can send their children to Europe and America with largely, there are a lot of hardworking Nigerians, but a good number of people are sending their children abroad with stolen money. You know, a lot of them are in the bureaucracy. They're making systems not to work. So the fact that the elite is relying on the exploitation of the state to survive and develop a false sense of consciousness about comfort, this is what the problem is. So the day the Nigerian elite decides that NSAS, protest, is not something that young people do, that protest is not something that university lecturers who have not been paid their salaries do, protest against a system that has endangered the very survival of our people is a moral obligation on all of us. And so again, I come back to the point. It is the reason why some of us are relentlessly committed to insisting that in good times and in bad times, we must hold our country and the conditions around which our people live as a mirror, so that those who lead us can go to sleep feeling, if they have a conscience, a bit uncomfortable. Could I have committed myself and energy to vote, asking people to vote for me, and I cannot see a smile, I cannot see a change in the lives of our people? And truth be told, Nigerians ask for very little from their leaders. They ask very little. So I think we have to change our perception that somehow a Messiah will come from somewhere and take away our sins. That's what we thought in 2015. That's what we thought in the years before. That's what we keep thinking. A Messiah is nowhere. There will never be a Messiah, a political Messiah. So it is now time for us to begin to become a bit more critical. And this is why the elections are important. That we can begin to criticize and look very clearly. If somebody promises to do X, Y, Z for us as a people, we must ask him, can you show us an antecedent of what you have done? Because this is a country where politicians, leaders come to us literally, as I've said it severally, by parachute. People with no antecedents, they have no proof. They are promising to give you a road, they've never constructed a road in their life. They are promising to change their life, but there's no evidence to suggest mentally, academically, from the point of view of experience, that we can say, well, this is what this guy has done. So if Chamberlain or any of you there tells me you want to start a television station on your own, I have a chance, I can believe you, because I've seen you in the studio, I've seen your capacity. But Nigeria is the only place where all kinds of people come from somewhere God knows where. And literally the political elite compel us to vote for it. So again, as I said, this is why there is so much tension in elections, which ordinarily should be taken as given. But the elite, the political elite with the knowledge about how society develops must get into politics. Getting into politics doesn't mean registering and having to vote or be voted for. It just means showing concern about the social conditions around which we all live.
Well, this is also largely about the people. They have a key role to play either way. At the moment, have you been able to gauge the opinion of Anambrans over there concerning these elections? If so, I mean, what do you get from that?
Look, Chamberlain, Anambra people cannot want something that is different from what everybody else wants in the world. People just want basically the same thing. Tolstoy said, every unhappy people are unhappy differently. Everybody wants peace in Nigeria. It's becoming a scarce commodity. God rest the souls of those who have just died in Lagos. It was an unnecessary death, but at the same time, we are hearing stories of how people are just being...
Yeah, Bishop, I meant with respect to this Saturday, will they be coming out? What do you think about the security situation and things like that?
I think it is difficult. It's a difficult question to answer, in part because, the security agencies are here. This place is, I think the police said they were sending 34,000 people or whatever. So there are two issues, and it's a plus and minus. It is possible that the presence of the security people can inspire people to go out with the belief that they'll be protected. But again, if you know the story, the sociology of ordinary Nigerians and their relationship with security agencies, there is also the added fear that people will probably just see the security agents and say, I'm not going to walk through all this, it's not worth it. So it can cut both ways. And like I said, this is why people like us are here, just to encourage our people. I had somebody say, and I think INEC has also said that adequate provisions have been made. Anambra is one of the most densely populated. It's just about 4.8 thousand square kilometers. So it's not a huge place with a population of over 5 million people. So, but also adequate arrangements have been made to make sure that people don't have to travel long distances to cast their votes. So, truth be told, the people of Anambra must accept one thing, unpalatable as it may be, whether you go out to vote or you don't go out to vote, people who cast their votes, those votes will be counted. And if 2,000 people cast their votes, or 3,000 people, or 30,000 people cast their votes, it's on the basis of that INEC is going to announce a winner. So if you decide not to vote, you have actually voted, only that you have voted by not going out to vote. So either way, so it's really, there's nobody that can give you a foolproof guarantee about what the outcome might be. We just, again, this is Nigeria. So we trust in the grace of God, that the elections will be very successful, that people can just go out and perform their duties, and that they will cooperate and collaborate with the security agencies, and that the security agencies themselves must not give the impression, that they are there for a contrived outcome. Luckily, this is a state election. It's not a federal government election. But notwithstanding that, I think people just have to make up their mind that this is their duty. And as I said, that's why we are here. The chairman of the peace committee is coming, and we're going to sign the peace accord tomorrow. So we are here largely to give encouragement to our people. But the guarantees can only be given by the state.
Your Lordship, I just want to ask you, by what parameters would you consider the elections a success at the end of the day?
Well, the most important parameter is that nobody needs to lose their life. I think, again, we go back to the famous statement by Jonathan, nobody's political ambition should be worth the life of any ordinary citizen. Too many Nigerians have died, unnecessary deaths. But again, to make the point that, for the ordinary enforcers on the ground who tend to cry more than they believe, to come to terms with the fact that, it's no use losing your life and then your candidate wins an election and others have to enjoy the benefits. So I think the most important threshold is to make sure that nobody loses their lives, nobody suffers any unwanted injury, and then, as you can see, we're in Nigeria, the light just went up. Thank you. But it's to say that it is the responsibility of INEC. INEC has a threshold that constitutes what we can consider free, fair, credible elections. So, they are the regulatory body. But as I said, for me, over and above everything else, be no use if these elections are free, fair, and credible, and even one person loses his life.
You also know, when you look at these strings that have hampered INEC carrying out its outdoor exercises as referred to by the INEC chairman, the fact that people were not even able to pick up some of their voters' cards, the new polling units that were created, people were not able to transfer to those polling units. And it looks like the figure is quite significant. Should we be worried about the numbers that we will see at the end of the day eventually coming out when they do to elect a governor for the people of Anambra?
Well, I expect so, but really, the cloud that hangs around Anambra, hangs around the southeast, hangs around indeed the length and breadth of Nigeria, is a feeling of real psychological and physical exhaustion. People just have lost a sense of who they are. They cannot find any more inspiration, but they must try and dig deep. So it's to understand that contextually, Nigeria has become a very difficult place, for compliance in any shape or form. So things that people would have been doing with a lot of enthusiasm, excitement, and so on, as we've always seen with elections, this is not where we are today. But happily, this is the greatest thing about Nigeria and Nigerians. It's a heck of a country. We are a heck of a people. All these things you will hear, all the negative scenarios that you may create, you may just find that by the grace of God, we just have free, fair, and credible elections. And people will actually go out and you'll ask yourself, all the doomsday scenarios, where did they go to? So we come to the cliff, we never really, tumble over, and happily we are hopeful that it will be the same with Anambra, that all the anxieties and all the fears and all the sorrows that we've had, the good Lord himself is on his throne. Anambra is it has given us a lot of very credible churchmen and women, and I'm sure they will hear our prayers, and hopefully the election will be free, fair, credible, and life will move on.
Well, yes, indeed. We all look forward to that, and we thank you and your team for the work you are doing. We're encouraging you all to keep the flag flying. Bishop Matthew Kuka is the convener of National Peace Committee. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain, and thank you, everybody. And as I said, may God give us peace and credible elections in Anambra. Congratulations, INEC. Congratulations to the good people of Anambra. Congratulations to Nigerians. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the first mail. You got that one?
Yeah, Danny is talking about the collapsed building topic that we began with. I wept when I saw the collapsed building. I'm all the way here in California in the United States of America. It's a pity these things will still continue as long as people compromise.
Well, this comes from Stephen. He says, how is it that the authorities of the emergency response teams do not know that rescue recovery work should be in shifts? Well said.
It's a big question. I think that continues. It says 24 hours round the clock by different teams and not one team working with breaks. Time is running out for those who may still be alive. There's a very important point he made, because the woman who spoke looking for her daughter yesterday, the team, we understand, was on break. And you have to ask, what about those who are supposed to be rescued? Well, let's take a look at this one from Moyenka Okwo, saying the standard of all construction materials in the country has been compromised due to rising costs. For instance, the reinforcement steel rods, 12 mm rods, are now lowered to 10 mm. Cement could follow the same, but it's more difficult to determine without testing, except for 50 kilograms reduced to 45 kilograms, etc. This must be checked.
Uzo on the same matter says, with utmost respect, it's wrong to attribute the collapse of any building to the absence of a Nigerian building code, desirable as the local code may be. Every engineer worth his salt designs according to a code of practice, which in the case of Nigeria, a former British colony, is usually a British code.
Well, Dan says about security this time. Security situation in Abuja is something that we should not overlook. The handwriting on the wall has been there since time immemorial, and yet nothing tangible has been done. The security agencies need to step up their game, avoid losing the FCT to these terrorists. It is not time for blame game, but time to act swiftly to secure the release of those kidnapped Uni Abuja staff. Security of lives and property should be paramount to government.
Enough said, I guess. Thank you so much for sending in your mails and your comments this morning and for being a part of our program. We appreciate that deeply. Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful and peaceful day.
I'm Chaimba Lunusa. Goodbye.